because we are reaching the final act on Pokrovsk, a quite an important place. The place that had in its vicinity the big coal mine that that helped in a lot of the steel industry for Ukraine. It was just a very important hub for logistics. It is a very important fortress. It is on elevated ground. It is a very big place for defense. There is a lot of discussion on how gaining this city will give Russia a lot of opportunity to strike into many different places, as that is one of those important defensive positions for Ukraine to hold. And it seems like Ukraine is about to lose that city. Russia said its forces had pushed deeper into the eastern Ukrainian cities of Pokrovsk and Kupiansk on Tuesday, with one video showing Russian soldiers rolling into Pokrovsk on motorbikes and even on the roofs of battered cars and vans, which it might sound sad, it might sound pathetic on paper, but it doesn't change the fact that no matter the cost, no matter on what battered equipment, Russia just seems to be pushing forward. Moscow says taking Pokrovsk, dubbed the gateway to Donetsk by Russian media, would give it a platform to drive north towards the two biggest remaining Ukrainian-controlled cities in the Donetsk region, Kramatorsk and Slovyansk. Russia has been threatening Pokrovsk for more than a year. Russia was supposed to capture Pokrovsk last Christmas, so Ukraine has definitely been holding on for far more than was anticipated. Unfortunately, it seems like Ukraine has also not built defense lines beyond Pokrovsk, which might turn to be a detriment. Using a pincer movement to attempt to encircle it and threaten supply lines, rather than the deadly frontal assaults it employed to capture the city of Bakhmut in 2023. Ukraine's military said about 300 Russian soldiers were now inside Pokrovsk, that Moscow has intensified efforts to get more troops in over the past few days using dense fog for cover. Yes, I actually remember. I've seen the footage of Russian soldiers moving on. Some users said looked like scenes from the 1979 action film Mad Max, which unfolds in a post-apocalyptic landscape. There is something to be said about that. There is something to be said about the degradation of the army. There's something to be said about the state of the armed forces of Russia. There is definitely something to be discussed about that. It is definitely not the image of a modern, powerful military force. The video showed Russian forces on motorcycles and in an odd assortment of cars and other vehicles. Many vehicles missing doors and windows were shown. Driving along a road strewn with debris, soldiers looked on. Some Russian soldiers sat on the roof of a battered vehicle. A drone was seen beside the road. Reuters was able to confirm the location of the video as Pokrovsk from the road layout, signs, utility tower, and trees seen in the video, which matched file and satellite imagery on the area. Reuters was not able to independently verify the date of the footage. And then you have that Russia and Ukraine are giving contrasting accounts of battle, which makes actually perfect sense because this war is not just happening on the ground. This is very much also a war of information, war of misinformation, war of information, of trying to build and lead the narrative. That is definitely something that is happening. Moscow and Kyiv have given different accounts of the battle for Pokrovsk. Moscow has for days said the city is encircled, while Kyiv has denied Moscow controls the city and said on Monday that it was still able to supply neighboring Mirnohrad. It is difficult. The situation is definitely extremely difficult for Pokrovsk. Open source battlefield maps from both sides show that Russia has executed a pincer movement around the city and are close to closing it, though Kyiv has counterattacked around the town of and the troops inside this pot are in danger. Ukraine's top military commander Alexander Syrsky, in an interview with the New York Post, said Russia was concentrating some 150,000 troops in a drive to capture Pokrovsk, with mechanized groups and marine brigades part of the push. Russia said its forces had taken full control of the eastern part of Kupiansk in Ukraine's Kharkiv region and were actively advancing to the northwest and east of Pokrovsk. It does seem like the fall of the city is inevitable. It does seem like it is a matter of time. And what value will Pokrovsk have for the Russian forces, and how well can Ukraine prepare for future fights? Like, the whole thing about the situation right now is Ukraine wishes to engage Russia in offensives that are so costly, that enact such a heavy loss for the Russian soldiers, that it would just become unsustainable for Russia. That is the main goal for Ukraine right now, to make these sort of offensives like the ones in Pokrovsk unsustainable, that Russia will be forced to negotiate rather than to push forward, because the loss in personnel, loss in equipment will just become too much for it to make sense to continue. And speaking of which, speaking of Pokrovsk, because I think that this is always a worthy endeavor to do, that is always as a budding journalist, I want to talk about a piece of brilliant journalism, which I'm going to copy here. Pokrovsk is a very interesting topic. Pokrovsk is being talked about right now in basically all of the media, because it is a very crucial time of this war. It is a very important moment in time. And just as it is important to understand what is happening right now in Pokrovsk, I feel like it is equally important to understand how is it that we got here? How did things deteriorate in Pokrovsk to the point that it did right now? And just so it happens, there is a very cool documentary that basically goes through 1 year in Pokrovsk. It documents the changes throughout 1 year, how the city went from people being there, trying to function in there, to the city becoming more and more destroyed, to the people not being there anymore, to the stores from operating to being destroyed, presenting shallow graves within the city because evacuating dead bodies became too much of a risk. It's all documented in this video that I'm gonna link right now. Here you go. I'm linking it on YouTube. Here you go. I'm linking it on the side chat. At least I wanna do it. I wanna link it on the side chat. I will in a moment. Boom. And we might as well check it out. We might as well check out some of it, because it's a really good documentary, and I feel like it should get more recognition. Should definitely get more recognition than it does. And if I can get a few more looks, a few more views on it, then that is a great thing. Let's take a look. Look at this. 1 hour 49 minutes of documenting how things went throughout the year in Pokrovsk. I'm gonna watch a minute maybe of it, and then you should get a little bit of an idea. Buffering. Believe it or not, this is actually not the Carol of the Bells. This is music composed in Ukraine by a Ukrainian composer. The Carol of the Bells is based on this Ukrainian piece of music that was actually composed in Pokrovsk, which is why the significance of the track here.
I'm embedded with the 59th Mechanized Brigade, fighting 25 kilometers outside of the industrial hub of Pokrovsk City, in a small town called Halisinivka. We are on a fire mission, with a Grad rocket artillery team trying to eliminate Russian forces that are advancing in the Donetsk region. The Grad team is using shoot-and-scoot tactics, dangerous work in the age of 24/7 drone coverage of the front line, with the enemy always looking for movement.
As I said, this is very interesting. This is a very good documentary. We're not gonna play much more of it, but I definitely highly recommend anybody who still has not watched it to watch it in full, because it's just a really good piece of journalism. It really shows how things progressed or regressed, if you, depending on how you want to look at it. I definitely 100% recommend you all to watch it.